Here we go underwater in a small river system where sockeye salmon have made a long journey to spawn. A very important fact to understand as an angler is that sockeye are generally one of the first salmon to migrate into a river system to spawn in good numbers. Chinook or king salmon may appear earlier, but often in smaller numbers. Another important fact is that trout, char, and whitefish, as well as other coarse fish, absolutely love and depend upon salmon eggs to fatten themselves up before winter comes. When these salmon appear, most trout and whitefish drop everything they're doing and follow or pursue the sockeye as far and as long as they can to be close to this important food source. Resulting from this is a major rule in fishing. If you want to know where the trout and whitefish are, follow the salmon, especially the sockeye. That is where you will find the heaviest concentration of trout and whitefish. We are looking at a run roughly 100 feet long. It is late August and the salmon are in their migration stage. We start at the shallow head of the run. Right at the head of the run, there's not much there other than sockeye salmon which are eager to push further upstream, where the gravel might be better suited for their spawning. They are all sockeye here, some silver, some fresh, others more beaten up. It's a boulder-strewn riverbed with a mix of sand and fine gravel. But let's continue downriver about 20 feet where the boulder-strewn bottom turns more into a deeper run with a sandier bottom. Over the silty bottom is where we first start to spot whitefish as they love this type of river bottom. It is also where the light salmon eggs start to settle, which means it's no coincidence that's why the whitefish are in this spot. The whitefish blend in remarkably well in this environment, while the salmon in the background stand out considerably more. As the run suddenly deepens in this area, we can see how there is a big change in the water currents. It is much slower, causing a lot of fine sediment to both become suspended in the water, distorting our vision a bit, and settling on the bottom, covering the boulders which mostly lie underneath all that sand. Now more whitefish and trout become apparent as we go further along the run and the water depth increases. You can see that there is actually quite a strong current still flowing on top of the water column, but below that, where the fish are mostly sitting, the trout and whitefish hardly have to work to hold their positions. In this deeper water, salmon and whitefish and some trout are sitting in the same general areas, but the whitefish are mostly hugging the bottom, whereas the trout are holding slightly higher in the water column by about another maybe foot or so, and the salmon are higher up yet still, perhaps midway up the water column. Each species clearly has its own preferences where it sits, but in general the trout and whitefish sit under and around the salmon and rarely directly amongst them. They are close, but not always too close. A beaten up salmon hangs out right in front of us. They've clearly seen some harsh travels to get to this point and still need to go further. It's a testament to how hard the environment is they need to endure in order to spawn. But let's just keep scanning along the stretch for a little bit further. Where we find the larger numbers of fish gathered, the water near the bottom is very still and lots of needles and small pieces of wood have settled on the sand. They barely stir. We move now another 15 feet downstream. There are clearly gaps between bunches of fish, with stragglers in between. But most fish group together, even those of different species. Most of the fish seem to ignore me. The odd one moves closer or veers away, but there's none fleeing from the camera or from my legs that are in the water or from my silhouette above. The one darker fish on the right might be a coho that's sitting amongst the sockeye right now. We move down about 25 feet further in the run now. As we get deeper and nearer the tail of the run, we see the first of the large-scale suckers appear. Again, we also see how the fish blend in remarkably well as we observe both a whitefish and a large-scale sucker. Occasionally, you also see that in the slower waters, fish may be moving in all directions. Most face upriver, but occasionally you see some changing positions, facing what you expect to be downstream when looking from above. It's almost more like a lake, where it might be difficult to tell which way a fish might be facing based upon just looking at the surface. What have we observed today? Well, first off, with the salmon come the trout, whitefish, and other coarse fish wanting to feed. Although they do group together somewhat in clusters, and there are stretches of river where there are lots of fish, and other stretches with no fish, each species seems to have its own traits as to where it prefers to sit. The salmon are spread out somewhat, but still I think we can classify them as sitting in two types of spots, either at the head of the run and probably eager to move forward upstream, sitting in the oxygen-rich water, versus the more sedated or resting fish that are in the deeper, slower part of the run. The latter you might think of possibly as just having arrived in the pool and stopping to catch their breath before they build up energy to push upstream. If you were to target these salmon, no, not that I would, given their condition, but perhaps fresher fish, more silverfish, if they were here, the head of the run is likely where I would target them. I'd also target near the deep, slower part of the run, but not necessarily deep down. The salmon are mostly higher up off the bottom, and if you fish deep, you're only likely going to miss out on the salmon. If you were targeting the salmon, an ethical and successful choice would be to fish higher in the water, not to use too heavy of a weight, and drift your presentation above the salmon so they can see it and more likely be sparked into striking. Conversely, the same analysis provides good guidance on what to do if instead you prefer to avoid the salmon, perhaps because it is illegal to fish for them or because you have little interest in fishing for fish in this condition. And you want to focus maybe on the trout and the whitefish. If this is the case, we know the trout and whitefish are below or deeper than the salmon when chasing the salmon in a river. They're also not sitting directly amongst the salmon, but more around them, to the sides, in front, below, etc. Furthermore, although we have noticed how hard it is to see the trout and whitefish as they blend in so well, the salmon are usually quite easy to see, so wherever we spot the easy to see salmon, we know the trout and whitefish are very nearby. So to find the trout, look for the easy to spot salmon. Once you find them, you want to fish deeper so as to get below the salmon and avoid attracting their attention. And you want to fish around the edges of the schooling salmon, not often right amongst them. The trout and whitefish, remember, are close to salmon, but not necessarily too close. And I hope I don't have to tell you that an egg pattern or something in those color schemes might be the best choice. One additional point is that when you're fishing amongst salmon but looking for the trout and whitefish, and I will get into this in a further video, you want to do what you can to avoid foul hooking the salmon. As you are fishing below and around them, the chances of them legitimately striking your pattern are lower. However, you run the risk of a salmon bumping your leader, then you mistakenly thinking it is a bite from a fish, and in setting the hook, you inadvertently snag or foul hook the salmon. As I mentioned, I will delve into this in a future video, but in general, you want to avoid setting the hook hard around the salmon, and you want to place your casts not into the tight bunch of salmon, but more to the side or downstream of their position. Believe me, trout are massively aggressive when feeding on fresh eggs like this, and you do not have to worry about setting the hook hard on every little bump. The trout will usually do the work for you, and you just have to hold on. Before setting the hook, give yourself a moment to see what the fish on the other end is doing. Is it just a salmon brushing your line? If so, it will generally feel very soft and gentle, and if you don't set hard, your leader will frequently slide off the fish and it will go unharmed. But if it is a trout or whitefish, the take will be far more committed, and you won't miss anything hardly by not reacting fast. The fish will more than often commit hard enough and leave it clear that it has your fly. And if you miss the fish due to a delayed strike, don't worry, 99% of the time the fish will be keen to pounce on your egg pattern as soon as you put it near it again. I certainly hope you found this video helpful and that you will subscribe so as to tune in for future episodes. Thank you for watching.